Part 10. The moment you stepped into the elevator, you took a deep breath, trying to steady yourself. Okay. Keep it cool. Act normal. No one needs to know. You had barely stepped into the office when Gene suddenly appeared in front of you, his arms crossed, a knowing smirk on his face. Well, he mused, eyeing you from head to toe. Look who finally joined the dark side. You blinked. Gene. Congratulations, he suddenly shouted, clapping his hands loudly. You jumped, looking around in panic. Gene. Shoo. But it was too late. Several employees turned their heads, clearly curious about why the CEO's assistant was loudly congratulating you. You grabbed Gene's wrist and yanked him into the nearest break room. Gene Oppa, what are you doing? Gene grinned, completely unbothered. What? I'm just happy for you. You don't have to yell it across the office. Gene chuckled. Oh, come on, it's not like people won't find out soon enough. You and Tay have zero subtlety. You sighed. We're keeping it a secret. Gene blinked. Oh? Oh. That explains why Ice Cube was sulking this morning. You groaned. Why is everyone like this? Gene smirked. Because it's fun. Outside, you could hear some employees whispering. Why did Gene congratulate her? Did she get a promotion? Or something else? You buried your face in your hands. This is going to be a long day. Gene patted your shoulder, still grinning. Welcome to dating the boss, kiddo. You groaned again. And your chaotic secret relationship had officially begun. You had barely recovered from Gene's loud congratulations when you stepped out of the break room, only to be ambushed. Emma, along with a few other coworkers, was already waiting for you, their eyes sharp with curiosity. YN. Emma called, striding toward you with a saccharine smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You froze, schooling your expression into one of innocence. Oh, hey, Emma. She stopped in front of you, arms crossed, tilting her head. So? She drawled, exchanging a glance with the other employees. Why did Gene just yell congratulations at you? Your stomach twisted. You could feel Gene watching from a distance, probably enjoying every second of your suffering. The other coworkers joined in, their curiosity practically tangible. Yeah, did you get a promotion? Did something happen? Wait, are you dating someone? The last question sent a jolt of panic through you. Emma leaned in, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. Come on, YN. Spill. You scrambled for an excuse. Think. Then, you blurted out the first thing that came to mind. Oh. Well. Gene was congratulating me because... You hesitated, then forced a bright smile. Because I, finally, beat him in chess. Silence. Emma blinked. Chess? You nodded furiously. Yes. Chess. I've been practicing for weeks. And Gene and I had a match last night, and I finally won. More silence. Your coworkers exchanged looks, clearly trying to decide whether to believe you. One of them frowned. Wait. Since when do you play chess? Crap. Gene, who had been leaning against his desk, grinning like an idiot, finally burst out laughing. Oh my God, he wheezed, clutching his stomach. That's the best you could come up with? Chess? You shot him a glare, silently begging for help, but Gene only smirked, crossing his arms as he watched the situation unfold. YN, be honest, Emma pressed, eyeing you suspiciously. That's not really why he congratulated you, is it? You felt yourself sweat under her gaze. But then... Actually, it is true, Gene cut in suddenly, his voice dripping with amusement. You snapped your head toward him in shock. Is he actually helping me? Gene grinned. Yeah. YN finally won. I've been her mentor for so long, and I'm just so proud of her progress. You almost sighed in relief. Until Jean turned to the group, his smirk widening. But you should have seen how emotional she got afterward. Tears. Screaming. Almost passed out from the excitement. Your jaw dropped. Jin, you shrieked. Your coworkers gasped. You cried? You almost passed out? Wow, I didn't know chess was that serious to you, Yn. Jean was full on cackling now, enjoying your misery like it was his morning entertainment. Emma, still unconvinced, crossed her arms. I don't buy it. Something else is going on. You scrambled for another excuse. I also got a great deal on a new pair of shoes. It was a double celebration. Jean lost it. He was dying at this point, practically wheezing from laughter. Chess and shoes? Emma repeated, her expression unreadable. Why yeah. You nodded enthusiastically. It's a big deal for me, okay? Emma squinted at you. You held your breath. Then. Okay, whatever, she finally sighed, rolling her eyes. I still think there's more to it, but if you don't want to tell us, fine. Your shoulders instantly relaxed. The other co-workers mumbled in disappointment before dispersing, though you could tell Emma wasn't fully convinced. As soon as they were out of earshot, you whirled around and smacked Jean on the arm. You suck, you hissed. Jean was dying of laughter, wiping tears from his eyes. Oh, come on. That was the funniest thing I've seen in weeks. You groaned, rubbing your temples. You were supposed to help me. I did, he protested, still grinning. I made it believable. You should be thanking me. You made it worse. Semantics. He shrugged. Anyway, good luck explaining this to Tay later. He's gonna love this story. Your soul left your body. Oh, you were so doomed. And this was only day one of your secret relationship. The morning passed in a blur as you immersed yourself in your work, focusing on the new designs for Park Hyung-sik's project. This was an exciting opportunity, and you were determined to prove yourself. Your fingers glided over the digital tablet as you sketched intricate patterns, losing yourself in the creative process. Even though your mind was occupied with work, the memory of Tay's teasing in the car, and Jin's chaotic antics, kept replaying in your head. A secret relationship with your boss was already proving to be exhausting, and the day had only just begun. You shook your head, clearing your thoughts. Focus, Yn. You're here to work. Still, you pushed all distractions aside and worked efficiently. The hours flew by, and before you knew it, lunchtime had arrived. By lunchtime, your stomach rumbled in protest. A small smile tugged at your lips as you checked your phone. As expected, there was a message from Tay. Tay. Lunchtime, little kitty. Come to my office. Now. You chuckled at his usual bossy tone, rolling your eyes playfully. He never asked, he commanded. Grabbing your things, you made your way to the top floor, excitement bubbling in your chest. Even though you had just seen him this morning, sneaking into his office like this made your heart race. The moment you stepped onto the executive floor, a strange tension settled in the air. Normally, the area outside Tay's office was quiet, professional, his employees always worked with quiet efficiency. But today, something was different. The energy was heavy, almost suffocating. As you neared his office, you heard his voice. But it wasn't the warm, teasing tone he used with you. This was something else entirely. Angry. Icy. Lethal. You dare come into my company and make demands? Tay's voice was sharp, cutting through the thick silence like a blade. You froze mid-step. Tay never raised his voice, not like this. Your heart pounded as you cautiously moved closer, standing just outside his office door, which was slightly ajar. The voices inside were muffled but clear enough for you to make out the conversation. You did not treat my son well, an unfamiliar voice sneered. You beat him. your eyes widened, your breath catching in your throat. Beat him? I warned him, Tay replied, his voice dangerously low. I gave him a chance. He chose not to listen. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating, before the older man spoke again. I will take revenge for this, Mr. Kim. Your stomach dropped. You needed to see who was inside. Carefully, you peered through the small gap in the door. 2 men stood in front of Tay's desk. One was younger, maybe in his 30s, dressed in a sharp gray suit. But it was the older man, standing beside him, that made your blood run cold. Something about him was familiar. His stern face, the way he held himself with an air of arrogance, it triggered a memory, something from your past. Then, it hit you. Tay's cold fury. Your heart pounded as you turned your attention back to Tay. He sat behind his desk, his fingers steepled together, his posture deceptively relaxed. But his expression, God. This wasn't the playful, teasing Tay you knew. This wasn't even the cool and composed CEO that others feared. This was something else. His dark eyes burned with barely restrained fury, his jaw clenched tightly. There was something chilling about the way he stared at them, as if he were sizing them up, calculating their worth before deciding if they were even worth his time. A demon in a suit. If looks could kill, the men standing in front of him would have already dropped dead. But they didn't cower. Instead, your ex's father smirked, his arrogance unwavering. You think your threats scare me? The older man scoffed. I have connections, Kim. You think just because you've built this empire, you're untouchable? Tay's lips curled into a slow, almost amused smirk. But his eyes remained ice-cold. I don't think I'm untouchable, he said, his voice deceptively calm. I know I am. The younger man beside the older one stiffened slightly, as if sensing the shift in power. Your ex's father, however, chuckled darkly. We'll see about that. You swallowed hard, gripping the wall beside you for support. Tay had beaten your ex? When? How? And more importantly, why? Your mind raced, trying to recall if there had ever been a moment when Tay had mentioned it, but he hadn't. Why didn't he tell you? And now, this man, your ex's father, was here, standing in Tay's office, threatening him. Your fingers tightened into fists. This was dangerous. You knew this was dangerous. You should walk away. You should pretend you didn't hear anything. But then, Tay spoke again. If you so much as breathe in my direction again, I will personally make sure you regret it. Your breath hitched. The sheer dominance in his tone sent a shiver down your spine. This wasn't a bluff. Tay was issuing a warning. Your ex's father exhaled slowly, as if weighing his options. Finally, he scoffed and turned toward the door. You had barely processed what you had just overheard when the office door swung open. Your breath caught as both men, the older one you now recognized as Daniel's father and the younger one beside him, stepped out. At first, they didn't seem to notice you standing there. But then, the younger man's sharp gaze landed on you, and a slow, knowing smile stretched across his face. You stiffened. Why is he looking at me like that? His dark eyes gleamed with interest as he took a step forward, his polished shoes clicking against the floor. Are you Miss YN? Your stomach twisted uncomfortably. Yes, you replied hesitantly. His smirk widened, and he exchanged a glance with the older man before turning his attention back to you. I thought so. You're even more beautiful than I expected. Your body tensed. Expected? Shock flickered across your face as you instinctively stepped back. You know me? The man chuckled, folding his arms over his chest. Of course. You're quite famous in our household. The way he said it sent an unpleasant shiver down your spine. His tone was smooth, almost charming, but there was something unsettling in the way his eyes lingered on you, as if he was assessing you. Before you could ask anything else, he offered a slight bow, the smile never leaving his face. I'm Daniel's older brother. The words felt like a slap to your chest. Your blood turned cold. Your ex-boyfriend's brother. Everything clicked into place at once, the familiarity, the way he looked at you like he already knew you. You forced yourself to remain composed, swallowing down the unease, creeping up your spine. I didn't know Daniel had a brother, you said, your voice carefully neutral. The man let out a soft chuckle. Ah, well, let's just say, I prefer to stay behind the scenes. The way he said it made your skin prickle. What does that even mean? But before you could dwell on it, something else happened. Suddenly you feel cold, the air around you shifting dramatically, and you feel someone looking at you coldly. Chill ran down your spine. A dark, suffocating presence loomed nearby. You didn't need to look to know who it was. Tay. You could feel his gaze burning into you like ice and fire combined. Slowly, as if afraid of what you might see, you turned your head. And there he was. Tay stood near the doorframe, leaning against it in a way that would have seemed casual, if not for the lethal, quiet storm raging in his dark eyes. His face was unreadable, his expression eerily calm. But that was what made it terrifying. Tay's silence. It was the kind of silence that preceded a storm. The air between you crackled with tension. The two men must have felt it too, because Daniel's brother's smirk faltered slightly before he took a step back. We'll be going now, he said smoothly. It was a pleasure meeting you, Miss YN. Daniel's father cast one last glare in Tay's direction before turning on his heel and walking away without another word. Only when the sound of their retreating footsteps disappeared down the hall did you finally allow yourself to breathe. But just as you exhaled, another movement made your body go rigid. Tay moved. Fast. Before you could react, his hand gripped your wrist, pulling you forward. Your breath hitched as you stumbled slightly, but Tay steadied you effortlessly, his grip tightening just enough to make sure you wouldn't slip away. He was angry. Your pulse thundered in your ears as you found yourself mere inches from him, his dark eyes locked onto yours with an intensity that made your knees weak. Did you know them? His voice was deceptively soft, low, steady. But it was lethal. His usual warmth was gone. This wasn't the playful, teasing Tay you knew. This was something else. You swallowed hard, suddenly finding it difficult to breathe under the weight of his presence. For the first time, you felt something you had never felt toward Tay before. Fear. Your lips parted, but no words came out. Tay smiled softly and said, "Answer me, YN." You nodded slowly. Yes, your voice barely above a whisper. Your throat felt dry. My ex-boyfriend, Daniel's father, and his brother. Tay stilled. For a split second, the storm in his eyes became unreadable. His dark eyes remained locked onto yours, unreadable, as if he was weighing something in his mind. Then, in a voice even colder than before, he whispered. He should consider himself lucky. The weight in his tone made your breath hitch. His thumb brushed over your lower lip, his touch deceptively gentle. If I had known Daniel was your ex-boyfriend, he trailed off, his words hanging in the air like a threat, unfinished, but still lethal. A shiver ran down your spine. The silence that followed was suffocating, wrapping around you like an invisible force. You swallowed hard. Tay. His jaw clenched slightly, and for the first time, you saw something flicker in his expression, something dangerous. He hadn't finished his sentence. But he didn't need to. Because you already knew what he meant. He would have killed him. The realization sent another wave of unease through you, and for the first time, fear curled around your ribs like an iron grip. Not fear of Tay. But fear of what he was capable of. Of how far he was willing to go for you. Your mind reeled, struggling to process the words he had just spoken. Tay, your voice wavered. You know him? Tay let out a slow, humorless chuckle. But there was no amusement in his eyes. Of course, I know him, very well. You felt lightheaded. What do you mean? He took a step closer, closing whatever little distance remained between you. His grip on your wrist was firm but not painful, his thumb absent-mindedly brushing against your skin, almost soothing, if not for the sheer danger radiating off of him. "It doesn't matter," he said, his voice still dangerously soft. "All that matters now is that he hurt you." Your throat tightened. "Tay, tell me the truth, how did you know him?" His grip on your chin tightened slightly, his thumb brushing over your lower lip. "The truth?" he murmured. His arms wrapped around you, pulling you against his chest with a desperation he couldn't hide. "Don't," he murmured, voice low, rough. "Don't talk about him anymore, okay?" You stiffened in his hold. He felt it, the hesitation, the uncertainty. He hated it. For the first time, you realized just how far Tay's obsession for you went. His love wasn't gentle. It wasn't something fragile or fleeting. It was dangerous. And he was dangerous for you. All-consuming. And it scared you. Not because you didn't love him, but because you were slowly realizing there was nothing he wouldn't do to keep you. His dark eyes, still stormy from the earlier confrontation, bore into yours. There was something dangerous lurking behind them, something terrifyingly unreadable. "Okay," you said. And then, just as quickly as it came, the darkness in his eyes faded. Tay's expression softened. His fingers instead moving to gently tuck a strand of hair behind your ear. A slow, warm smile spread across his lips. "YN," he murmured, his voice now syrupy sweet, "it's our first day together. You remember, don't you?" You blinked. What? Just moments ago, his aura had been suffocating, his presence a storm raging at the brink of destruction. Now, he looked at you like you were his entire world. Like the devil himself had put away his horns, just for you. Your stomach twisted, and for the first time, you didn't know how to react. Your instinct screamed at you to be careful. You had seen it. That glimpse of the darkness inside him. You knew now, without a doubt, Tay was dangerous. Not just in the way he controlled people with his power, his wealth. No, this was different. This was him. Something inside him was capable of things you weren't sure you wanted to understand. And yet, you smiled. Not because you weren't scared, but because something in you, something reckless, something dangerous in its own right, wanted to see. "Let's see, YN," you thought. You smiled back at him, tilting your head slightly. "Of course, Tay. How could I forget?" His eyes flickered, pleased. His hand lingered against your cheek for a second longer before he pulled away, reaching for his suit jacket. "Good," he murmured, straightening his sleeves. And then he whispered, "Love." His lips curving into the softest smile. "Let's eat, okay?" The contrast between the devil you had seen just moments ago and the man in front of you now was jarring. But you nodded, letting out a breath you hadn't realized you were holding. "Okay." And just like that, the storm passed. For now. But deep down, you knew. This was only the beginning. Of what, you weren't sure. But you wanted to find out. After lunch, you sat at your desk, staring blankly at your screen. The designs for Park Hyung-sik's project remained untouched, the sketches on your tablet blurred as your thoughts spiraled. Tay's voice echoed in your head, wrapping around you like a phantom grip, possessive, inescapable. "If I had known Daniel was your ex-boyfriend." That unfinished sentence haunted you. Not because you didn't know what it meant, but because you did. He wasn't just talking. He wasn't making empty threats. You shivered, gripping your styles tighter. By the time the evening rolled around, your mind was still clouded, your body running on autopilot as you made your way to Tay's car. You weren't sure if you were walking into safety or into the lion's den. The evening sky stretched out in hues of deep indigo and burnt orange as Tay's sleek black car smoothly maneuvered through the streets. The quiet hum of the engine filled the space between you, a steady, rhythmic sound that should have been comforting. But your mind was elsewhere. Tay's words from earlier still echoed in your head, wrapping around you like invisible chains. "If I had known Daniel was your ex-boyfriend." Even though he hadn't finished his sentence, the weight of his unfinished words had been enough to send shivers down your spine. You had spent the rest of the day in a haze, trying, failing, to concentrate on work. But every time you closed your eyes, you saw the shift in Tay's demeanor. The possessive darkness in his gaze. The terrifying calm in his voice. And yet, here you were, sitting beside him as he drove you home, your fingers curled around your lap like a secret you didn't want to reveal. Tay hadn't said anything since the drive started. But you knew he sensed your tension. He always did. A soft sigh escaped you, and before you could even process it, then, without warning, he reached over with one hand, effortlessly intertwining his fingers with yours. You inhaled sharply as his warm fingers intertwined with yours, his thumb brushing over your knuckles before moving to trace the cool metal of the ring he had given you. His grip was firm, grounding, yet oddly gentle. You glanced at him, but he didn't look back. His eyes remained focused on the road, his face was unreadable, but his lips curled into the faintest smirk, as if he had been expecting your gaze. Still, he said nothing. Just smiled and continued driving, his grip on your hand firm yet gentle. He continued rubbing his thumb over your ring, the repetitive motion oddly soothing, as if he was wordlessly reminding you of his presence. And for a moment, just a brief moment, you allowed yourself to focus on the warmth of his touch. Minutes passed, the steady rhythm of his fingers against your skin making you all too aware of his presence. Then, finally, he spoke. "YN," he murmured, his voice deep, smooth, dangerously soft. "What happened?" You blinked, startled. "What?" His grip on your hand tightened slightly, just for a second, before he loosened it again. "You've been quiet," he mused, his tone light, almost teasing. "Your mind has been somewhere else all evening." You swallowed, looking away. "It's nothing, Tay." Silence. Then, a low chuckle. You turned your head just in time to see him smirking, amusement dancing in his dark eyes. "Oh," he mused, tilting his head slightly. "So nothing is making my little kitty all tense?" You rolled your eyes. "Don't call me that." His smirk widened. "But you like it." "I don't," you lied. Tate sked, bringing your hand up to his lips. He pressed a feather-light kiss to your knuckles before murmuring, "Liar." Your brain short-circuited. Before you could even recover, he pouted. "Little kitty," he whined dramatically, squeezing your fingers. "Focus on me." Your breath hitched. You stared. Your lips parted slightly, your pulse quickening. "Damn him." He blinked at you with wide, innocent eyes, his lips pushing into a full, exaggerated pout, as if he was a child who had just been denied candy. Your brain stopped functioning. Because this was not fair. 1 second, he was an untouchable force of power, a man who could make grown men shake in fear. And the next? He was making puppy eyes at you while holding your hand like some love-struck fool. Your lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Tay knew what he was doing. He could sense the way your heartbeat stuttered, the way your face flushed, the way you were completely, utterly helpless against him when he acted like this. And he loved it. His smirk returned, and he leaned in slightly, his voice dropping into that dangerous, teasing tone. "You're staring," he murmured. You snapped out of it, heat rushing to your face as you immediately turned away. "No, I'm not." Tay laughed. "You totally are." You turned back, ready to argue, only to freeze when you saw the way he was looking at you. His smirk had softened into something more genuine, something affectionate. And just like that, the tension in your chest loosened. Tay didn't push further. He simply continued holding your hand, rubbing small circles against your skin with his thumb. In one smooth motion, he lifted your hand and pressed a soft kiss against your knuckles, his lips brushing over the ring he had given you. The air inside the car felt warmer now, lighter. He had successfully distracted you. As the car pulled up in front of your apartment, Tay finally released your hand, but not before brushing his fingers along your palm one last time. "Good night, little kitty," he murmured. You rolled your eyes, but this time, there was no real annoyance behind it. Good night, Tay. And as you stepped out of the car, you realized. For all the fear you had felt earlier, for all the dangerous things you had uncovered today, Tay still had the power to make you smile. In next part. The moment you stepped outside, you froze. Your breath hitched, your heart stuttered, and your brain, your logical, reasonable brain, refused to process what was in front of you. Kim Tae-young. Standing casually in front of your apartment. And looking completely different from anything you had ever seen before. What the hell? Your mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You blinked rapidly, gripping the doorframe for support. Tay? Is this Tay? Good morning, little kitty. Instead, Tay's voice was soft, warm, filled with amusement as he looked at you like you were the cutest thing he had ever seen. And that only made it worse. Your face burned, and you immediately averted your gaze. Tay chuckled, clearly enjoying your reaction.
Hey, dear Army, this is my dear diary. We're always looking to share more stories and novels. If you like our video, please subscribe to our channel. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions are my biggest motivation. More exciting and interesting novels updated every day. Thank you.